Are you there, Jan?
Yes, I am. I'm just getting all sorted. I was,
Just
myself.
checking. I was like, you never know.
Thank you. Thank you. So, welcome everyone. I think almost everybody knows me, but just in case you're listening to this recording, I'm Jem Jeremias, one of your hosts today. I'm an integrative health and wellness coach and author who works with people and their pets to empower them to overcome health challenges and live healthier lives. And I'm very excited to be back again this week and to be joined on stage once again with my beautiful co-host, collaborator, and friend, the amazing, very kind Mary Jane McQueen. And so, Mary Jane, I'll pass it to you, my friend.
Thanks, Jan. And yes, I was gonna say probably most people know who I am on the call today, but also yes, for the recording purposes. So yeah, I'm Mary Jane or MJ, and I am a graphic designer, and I have now founded my own creative studio. And that's where I help entrepreneurs to step into their light and share their gifts authentically. And really, I help to guide clients to overcome self-doubt, help them find their voice, and create visuals that align with their mission. And as always, I am honored to be here with all of you today. Thank you for joining us. And as well as along with my beautiful friend Jan, who inspires me every day by shining brightly. And welcome to Not Too Much, Not Too Little, Walking the Middle Way. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a cool topic.
Okay. Me too. Do you want to share the poem, Mary Jane?
Okay, sure. You want me to share it now? That's awesome.
Hmm.
Yes. Okay. So I always like to share a little bit of inspiration. Actually, this one Jan shared with me, and I thought, oh, this one speaks really to the message of what we were going to be having a conversation about today. So it's called The Gift. It's by Emma. We all had a whole conversation about, I think it's Desprez, because it seems to be a French name. So I'm going to go with that. And the gift says, lift one foot, surrender, place the other, claim. Step by step, life unfolds behind me. The future beckons me forward. The path wasn't clear until I chose it. It will be gone once I have passed. The gift is in this choice to surrender and claim, this choice to create my life one step at a time. The gift is right here where I am. And it's so true, right? In our day-to-day life, we get so busy with things sometimes that and we wonder what we should do next. And there it is right there, the gift. Just lift one foot, keep stepping, baby step by baby step, if that's what it is. So thank you, Jan.
Thank you, Mary Jane. So, welcome everyone. We're so glad you're here today for our conversation and meditation. Not too much, not too little, walking the middle way. And as we stand at this time of the spring equinox, nature is offering us a beautiful lesson, one of balance and harmony and recalibration. The equinox is the moment when light and dark stand in perfect equilibrium, a reminder that life isn't about extremes, but about finding the rhythm that allows us to thrive. Yet in our daily lives, balance can feel elusive. We often find ourselves working too much, thinking too much, striving too much, or on the other hand, feeling stuck, disconnected, or drained. The middle way isn't about doing nothing or settling for the in between. It's about wisdom, knowing when to lean in and when to step back, when to act and when to allow. It's about creating space where we can move through life with grace, intention, and ease. So today we invite you to reflect. Where in your life do you find yourself swinging between extremes? What would it feel like to embrace a more balanced, sustainable way of being? How can we use this season of renewal to realign with our natural flow? We'll begin with some discussion and reflection before moving into the guided meditation to help us embody the sense of centeredness and ease. Let's take a deep breath in, pause, and settle into this space of exploration, curiosity, and gentle awareness. Are you ready to walk the middle way? Let's begin. So I happen to also really love this topic. And I think that one of the things about balance that, when we were preparing, that I found that really resonated with me was this idea of finding balance in the imbalance. And that really spoke to me because I think that if we are expecting life to be balanced, good luck. I think it is a constant dance, like a constant play. And yes, it's kind of walking that middle way. So you kind of go off balance, but you're not going way over in one direction or way over in the other direction. But how can we find sort of ease in the fact that, there's going to be imbalance? And imbalance also reminds me of the word change. Like there's going to be change. And I think our issue is the fact that we get attached to things. And then all of a sudden, when things go off track, whether they're good or bad, we feel like out of balance. And the question is, how do you seek and how do you find balance in the imbalance itself?
So true, Jen, what you're sharing, because I must admit from personal experience this past week or so, I've been feeling, it sounds funny to say, I've been feeling a little unbalanced, but um, I mean that in the sense that, um, just feeling like a little bit of, probably a little bit of overwhelm and feeling that, there's a bunch of things happening all at one time. And not all that, and it don't necessarily mean that they're bad things happening. It just means that there's just so many of them. It's just my head can be spinning. So it's it's really a good thing. And one thing I've been trying to do this past week or so when things have been happening is setting boundaries for myself and letting people know that where my boundary is, because it's when you're in a state of overwhelm, the last thing you need is somebody overstepping, you know, those boundaries, especially when you're trying to like stay connected to the things that you're doing and in the process of doing and that you love doing. It's just really important to do that and rest when. And another thing I've been doing is rest when I feel like I need to rest. Um, because I get more accomplished in the long run if I listen to what my body is telling me instead of what my my brain or my ego wants to tell me that I need to keep going and going and going. But I'm not like a little Energizer bunny, so I need to I need to um, rest sometimes, recharge the batteries, so to speak.
No, I love what you shared about boundaries. And then the other thing is to prioritize, because I think that when you feel overwhelmed and really, really busy, it just, you do have to prioritize. And a lot of what we've been talking about over the last like month or two, um, about like, to-do lists and what we feel like we need to get done on a given day or in a given week. And then I just, have now resigned myself to the fact that I will never accomplish everything on my to-do list. And that's probably, and that's a good thing because when I do, I won't be here, So, and so I'm like, oh, okay. Um,
Yeah, it just
oh,
that's so true, and that's one thing, I mean, I know that Jan, you and I have this, and we have that with a number of other people as well, but it's just keeping the lines of communication open, saying, "Hey, I need to take a breath here." So, it's and you and I have that conversation sometimes, and one of us will pick up where the other one needs a break or needs a breath, a moment just to recenter, refocus. And that's a beautiful thing. So communication is key.
Absolutely. And I have to agree with you. It is like, with our like collaboration, it's a true partnership and friendship. So when we are like, like you'll message me 1,000 things and then I'll be like, wait 1 minute, like pause. I'm getting a little overwhelmed. And you said, like, you'll clarify and say, I don't mean we have to do these all today. This is the ta-da list to take
Yes, it's
Darlene.
the yes, Darlene's to-do list. We use that often now, Darlene. We
Yeah.
it's much it sounds much more light than to do because that sounds like it's a chore. But to-do
Right.
is like, oh, look, I get to do that.
Right. So to our to-do list, we added to our to-do list. Yeah, isn't that a number of months ago, Austin, we had a whole thing about our to-do lists and everything. And um, we reframed it according to a beautiful message that Darlene gave us, which kind of shifted my focus into I have to do this versus I get to do this versus, I'm blessed to do
That's
this. Yeah, and now I was in my program that I'm doing on the past like 2 months or something. And he said, well, maybe instead of I have to, you could say, you could add in I choose to do this. Because he said sometimes, you don't really want to like do something, it's like, but you're obligated to do it. But maybe it's like I choose to do this. It's a choice. So it's not as, disempowering, I guess is a good word.
yeah, it's not as heavy either when you feel like you have some sort of choice in the matter, even if it's something that you may not particularly normally would choose to do or whatever. But when you say I choose to do something, there is an empowerment, and it's less heavy than saying, "Oh, I have to do it." And I know we all probably say that or sometimes, "Well, I have to do it," but it's all about finding the balance, right? Yes, Alice
Mhm.
is obligatory. Yes, yes. Sometimes it's that, and I love that. So that's it's so awesome. But yeah, and I love Jan how you were saying that. It's like when you said about it's like finding the balance is like you if you expect it to be perfect, it's like good luck. I had myself muted, but you don't know how much I belly laughed when you said that. But I love it. Embracing the imperfection, I guess, because just realizing that it's not going to be 100% um, what we might expect, but sometimes these are wonderful. They can be wonderful lessons and wonderful experiences that we never thought of before. So it's really about embracing the imperfection because you never know, something really awesome can come out of it. That's the way I'm starting to reframe things for myself.
Yeah, well, I think what ends up happening, one is that sort of reframing. And, I was on yesterday in a wonderful conversation with Melanie and Michael, and we were talking about this idea of, just do it sometimes, like just go for it. Or because what ends up happening is if we wait till we think it's perfect, it never gets done. I once had a conversation with somebody who said to me, oh, well, I can't start my business because I don't have a website. Like I don't have my website done. And I thought to myself, my website's never been done. It's a constant evolution or constant evolving. It changes all the time. I think it needs to be tweaked, because I change and what I've been offering changes. And so it's not stagnant. And so if I had done that, I probably wouldn't have started my business 15 years ago, and so I think that you have to kind of be willing to know that things are going to change. And that's the difference between like perfect in our heads and kind of, and I'm not saying it doesn't need to be perfect for what it is, but just to realize to not get stuck there, I guess, or sort of obsess or get fixated on that so that you can move and grow because otherwise, your business is going to fail anyway because you haven't grown at all and you haven't kind of as we all know, change is inevitable. That's the one guarantee is things will change. Um, and then the other thing besides for that sort of perfection kind of attitude is also that attachment to outcomes or expectations, which I've been playing with a lot. is what I see as, the way I want something to come out versus the way it comes out, and how all of a sudden I label that in my head as being good or bad or whatever, when no one else knows what the plan in my head was.
That's so true. Well, I shouldn't say all of us. Some of us in here might be able to read minds, but I'm not that good. I'm very intuitive about reading body language and tones, and even in writing the tones. But yes, we're not very good at doing that. But it's true. It's like I was saying. It's like um, yeah. There's always that there's either it's like there's like the Elvira, one of our compadres here, she always says there's no such thing as losing, it's always winning and learning. And I think that's a good way of finding balance in life. It's like okay, so what's the lesson to be garnered from whatever the situation is? So but yeah, it's just an interesting and sometimes it's staying calm in those situations, because sometimes our reactions can be as human beings can be reactive, but just remaining calm and sort of giving it perspective, letting it time to settle.
I love that idea of perspective, like giving it a little bit of space.
Mm, good
You know,
word.
thank you. One of the meditation techniques that I've been playing with over the past few weeks is this idea of starting out looking, like focusing on one thing and then sort of expanding your view so that you take in, you know, the what you can see, without moving your head. So a broader perspective, and sort of like to stay in that space and playing between the two, because it gives you a very different perspective of what your surroundings look like. I mean, it's very easy to do if you are standing on a mountain and looking out at a vista or looking at the ocean. But if you don't live in an area where you can do that, where you get that very sort of bird's eye, very broad perspective, this is just a practice where you can, because we are very used to being very centered. I mean, all day. I mean, we look at a screen with little boxes. So a lot of us for a lot of the day. So we're very used to having fixated on a very small point. And I think that almost forces us or encourages us to kind of look at life like that, like it's a fixated point, and life is expansive, as are we. So I think that it just gives us an opportunity to play with that. And welcome, Sue. Good morning. Oh, good afternoon to you. And I didn't verbally welcome, but welcome, Miriam and Divine. We've, missed you guys past few weeks. So, anybody who wants to join us up on stage, feel free to join the conversation. But the other thing I've been playing with a lot is just extremes in languaging. And that was something I really, really enjoyed over the past weeks with the program, is we were talking about how often we use like this always happens to me, or this, you know, never happens. Like one thing happens in your life that's bad, and all of a sudden your whole life is bad. You have one friend that like, all of a sudden the friendship, goes away for whatever reason. It served its time, but it's like no one loves me. And I've been looking at my use of extremes and languaging. Like this never works out for me kind of attitude. And so I've been really watching where I say those words, because as I do that, what ends up happening is all of a sudden I realize that it's not my whole life. Like this one bad thing happened today, and that does not need to destroy my whole day. And so I just, I've been playing with that. So I actually invite you to try it, because it's really interesting to see where you use those very extreme words, of like those all or nothing words. Like you never do this. Anybody catch themselves saying that to a significant other?
I was gonna say I may or may not have said that in the past week, but but then I'm caught myself midstream going, okay. So it's like maybe I need to rephrase this because that's never is a little bit um yeah, maybe not 100% true. But yeah, it's so often it kind of reminds me a little bit about, it's like when you're a little kid and you really want some special treat or some special thing, and you just all of a sudden and you're like, but you never give it to me. It's that sort of thing. But I guess we all do have that little child still living inside of us. So sometimes that, that little hurt child comes out sometimes.
So, Austin, you had your hand up. Did you want to share something?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. Thanks for having me participate. I just want to second what you said, Jan. Um, I also really resonate with that. When I began, and it was actually with the index that I shared in the chat, I wrote that down, and I literally for a month or longer, it took me before it became second nature. I would read that and practice catching myself with those words. And um, it really changed a lot, and not in ways that I that I expected it would change. But one thing that really stood out was not only was I able to make it habit to notice how I was talking about my own life and other people also, is I really started to notice how people around me were talking and kind of reinforced like where I needed to put up boundaries or what environments are actually kind of toxic and enabling me to continue thinking this way. So it was more than just me changing my and reframing how I was talking, but also it rippled out to other areas of my own personal development. So I love that this you guys brought up about, the power of our words. And of course there's, vibration and frequency and all that too, but just taking notice and being aware, so powerful. So
Thank you, Austin. Yeah, and I love what you shared and the fact that and then all of a sudden you do notice how other people speak and how they say and the words they choose to use. And yes, I do think it does affect or does influence who you decide you're going to surround yourself with. I mean, I think that that's when I said, you have a friendship that that dissolves. And a lot of times, I mean, I've found through the years as I've expanded and grown, all of a sudden I don't resonate with certain people anymore. We just can't relate to each other and where we are and how we view life because, one of us thinks one way or has evolved to think a certain way and the other person does not. And, sometimes relationships are, can withstand that and it doesn't really matter. Like I have a close friend who lives about 20 minutes from me and we grew up together and I talk about her often. I mean, literally, I've known her since I was like 2 years old. So my entire life, we are so different. And it's so interesting because we've still remained friends. We're still really great friends. And there were periods where we weren't like that close. We didn't live in the same state. We lived about 3 or 4 hours away from each other and our lives were very different. And now we live very close to each other again, but we are very different people. And then there are people, who I consider in some of these groups who have evolved and kind of like are on that same sort of path of spirituality and self-development and self-refinement, I like to call it, as opposed to self-improvement, a refining, a polishing. We say that in yoga. Polish your heart. So a polishing. So Darlene, you had your hand raised and welcome Umber.
Yeah. Um, I always, when I'm listening to all of this, I write down little notes so I don't forget all the points because there are so many, excuse me, such incredible, poignant points. And first off, I just want to say, isn't it interesting? And I find it so amazing that once you start to shift that language, how often you can't unhear things now. I know for me, once I started the, shifting of the I have to I am blessed, to how often I hear it within myself and my own language, and how sometimes derogatory I can be, when reflecting on myself, but then as well when I'm speaking to others, just our language is so negative, so often, and it's just such an amazing gift to be able to be in that space where we can start to shift that so it's a little softer and it's a little gentler. And part of that for me has been really utilizing in the last little while this whole thought process of leaning into things and letting them go. So when I think of balance, I think I'm kind of leaning into something that maybe feels a little uncomfortable, but I'm leaning into it almost like a tree would when the wind blows. And it makes it feel a little bit more pliable. And it also makes me feel a little bit more grounded because I feel like I'm rooted in what I know and what I need for myself. And if I lean in a little too far, that's okay because I know I can always shift back. And it just takes the edge off that and it brings it into a little bit of a softer space and place. And I just find it such a gift, in so many ways. And I did take a look at the cue card, that you wrote, and I love it. And the one, I love it, Austin, because the one that really struck me when I took a look at it is the word just. And I find that word just often can unbalance things for me. I'll be typing an email and I'll say something like, I'm just reaching out to you because, or and then I have to stop myself because I realize that there's power in, there's um, fruitfulness in what I'm trying to say. So why should I diminish it by the word just? And that word just has been, one of those words I've been trying to get out of my vocabulary so I can move it off to the side and be more firm and be more confident in what I'm speaking. So I love the all resonates. It gave me goosebumps when I saw it, because you just made things click this morning when I read that. So thank you.
Thank you, Darlene. I love that. And the other word is like, because I think just and Sue put in the chat the word but. It's like it's almost like we're apologizing for something, or that's the tone. It's not like it's like you said, there is a lack of, it's not even commitment, but a lack of being present in the verbiage. It's like you're not present. And that presence carries over into whatever you're sending, whether via text or even speaking. It's just like there is that missing of that ground. And I know you're a yoga person, Darlene, as some of you are on this call. And that's why I've always loved yoga, because yoga is a test of balance and play. You know, I think a few weeks ago I spoke about my teacher who I did my training with. He used to say, "Go to your edge," and we used to say, "What's our edge?" Like I turned to my friend Penny, who was doing the training with me, and we looked at each other and said, what's the edge? Like it was like, and it was so funny because we're both like sitting there in class, as we're laying there, we're like, do I go to my edge? Do I not go to my edge? But I think that that's life. I think there are situations where we step away from the edge, and to know that about yourself, like what situations or what things throw me off balance or take me out of that midline. I never use profanity. I'm always very authentic on these calls. I don't usually use profanity, and I'm talking to Mary Jane the other day, and I swore, and she looked at me and she was like, "You never use like extreme language and everything." I said, "Yeah, I know." I was talking about a few family members, and I said, "I only use it when I'm speaking about them." Because I was very frustrated. So I think it's kind of knowing what things throw us off balance and what people push our buttons. Not to say that that's bad, because I think it tells us about something about ourselves, but to kind of realize that, like, for whatever reason, they say that it really annoys me and what it triggers in me. But it's kind of like learning those things. But that point, or that balance point, which doesn't mean that it's rigid. I mean, Darlene spoke beautifully about trees. You know, a tree that is rigid and has no give breaks. It snaps when the wind comes. If you've ever watched a tree, they move. And that's that they're, they may not move a lot, but they do shift. And that's that balance line of not going to extremes. Oh, thank you for the tree, Darlene. I love it. I
You're
love it.
welcome. You're welcome. I just found it. And can I also add, I think the word just and but devalue. That was the word I was looking for, right? It really sort
Oh,
of
beautiful.
devalues everything else that's just come before it, right? So it's almost, I've made this great point or I'm sharing, but then you add a but and a just in there and it completely negates everything you've just said before. And letting go of, I think in that leaning into, it's a letting go of the expectation, right? So the balance, it allows you to stay a little bit more balanced because there's no expectation there. You're just leaning into it, you're observing it, you have the awareness, and then you're coming back to that center of balance.
Yeah, I love that. And I know, Darlene, you and I were on a call with a group of people the other day, and it was like that was like, as I was sharing a little bit earlier, it's like, this past week it's just been, yeah, trying to find that balance line's been interesting. But I was just saying that my thing was like I'm leaning in, there's those words, into trusting the process that I am where I'm meant to be and I'm doing the things I'm meant to be doing. And looking, obviously accepting guidance if that's not what the case is, but there's the but I had to say but there. um, However, I guess I could say it really is a process of finding that delicate balance, and sometimes it's easier than others, for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, in certain situations, it's very hard. And maybe at the moment you don't find balance, and then afterwards, and that's learning, that's wisdom. You sit there and you're like, okay, is when you can see it. And then you reflect on it and you're like, okay, well, I did not, I did not handle that well. And how could I handle it differently if and when it happens again? And just knowing that, that's empowerment, is not to be constricted and limited by it and not to be bound by what happened before, but to be able to take that and move on from wherever you are. Divine, did you want to share our beautiful, beautiful friend?
Hello, my loves. It's so good to hear you guys' voice, everybody. Um, Even though I may not know you guys yet, but it feels good to hear everybody's voice because I feel like I just been in this zone, right, within myself and creating that inner balance and harmony from within from my overall wellness. But I'm so grateful to be here in this moment. I'm hearing you guys speaking about these words. And I tell my children all the time that words cast spells, right? And you are the first caster because it comes out of you, through you and out of you. So you're not only casting spells on yourself, but you're casting spells on everybody that's around you. We are a ripple effect, and the ripple effect is affecting everybody, right? The cause and effect. So, I'm very mindful of how I use words. I really try to take my time before I make decisions as well, and I check in with my discernment. And some words I've been using lately is yet, also, also, and yet this can happen, right? And all is possible because we are in an infinite realm of possibilities. Think about how we can be walking contradictions with ourselves, right? We have multiple different personalities. Everybody has a personality disorder that we don't talk about. You know, some people just have a way of being with it and accepting it within themselves, or some people just have a way of unapologetically just expressing it and not knowing when to use it and how to use it, or whatever the case may be, right? But I just want everybody to know that there isn't absolutely nothing wrong with you. And Jan, I love my power words. I call them
Mm-hmm.
my fire power words. So I think that even when we cast spells, when we say curse, right? Cursing, we all been taught cussing and cursing is casting a spell, but all words to come through us cast a spell. That's why they call it spelling, you know. So again, thank you for being authentic. Thank you guys for opening up space today, and know that we are together in harmony when we are coming together in this beautiful space and just allowing ourselves to be authentic and to share and know that we are the priority first. Our main priority is ourself in creating that inner harmony. And I yielded there, love. Thank you.
Thank you, Divine. And one of the things, I mean, I love, so first of all, I love, Mary Jane and I always talk about the fact that we're word nerds. Like we love words. And I think that, um, words are extremely powerful. And as is tone, and we've spoken about this before, um, just the tone of voice and someone's tone. And I think that that's why certain people you hear them, and it's like you're mesmerized. There's something about the tone of their voice that just, Mary Jane and I have a friend, Mike, who just has this, like, I mean, has this very musical, very beautiful tone in his voice. And it's just like you can just listen to him forever. And I think there are people like that. I always call it my yoga voice because literally when I use that voice, Tonka goes into Shavasana. He goes to sleep. He's like mellow. And so, which he's not usually at all. And so that tone of voice, which can be, which can change someone as the words also. Kimberly, please.
Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Jan and Mary Jane, for your space this morning. I like this topic of words. For me, words are the windows into our soul. And so when we're talking about it in the vein of personal development, and in in the speech and language world, we would call it a language sample. Um, when we're taking a language sample and we're looking at some of these words, just, but really for me, they're a deeper insight into our belief system and what's really happening in our belief system. And in many areas of life, I like getting, excuse me, to the root cause, right? And we'll often hear about that in regards to our physical health, right? We could fix things on the surface, but if we're not going down deep and getting to the root cause, then we will not see change take effect. So for me, as we're talking about words, doing a language sample, that's what I think about. If we find that this is a pattern for us, taking a look at our belief systems, our habits, can really give us insight into what is happening in our internal world. And I believe as a result, our language will start to change. So again, ladies, just a beautiful space that you hold for everyone and give us an opportunity to kind of take a peek inside the window. So thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. And, as I've been doing over the past like 2 months, this program, one of the things I've mentioned, so is to start you talk about words and talking or speech. And one of the things that I like to really think, I've been very focused on is how am I speaking to myself? Like, what am I saying to myself? What words am I using when I do talk to myself? And what kind of energy or feeling is associated with that? Like, do those words hold for me? And how does it make me feel? Like those words, like the words I use when I And so I've been using an app on my phone called Mind Jogger. And one of my prompts is, how are you talking to yourself right now? And that goes off like, I don't know, like 10 times a day. And it's sporadically, like I have no idea. All of a sudden you'll hear a ding and you might hear it if you happen to be on a meeting with me and I don't have it off by mistake usually. Um, but when it's on, that's what it says to me. And I have to like all of a sudden to catch myself and realize like, how am I talking to myself and what am I thinking? And to realize how much that pattern is running and I'm not even aware of it. It's like all of a sudden I'll be like, oh my gosh, there I am thinking about that. Or there I am saying that to myself again. And you're like, whoa. And you realize how much of it is just like, it's almost like you can't control it. And now that I'm aware of it, yes, like it goes off and I'm like, I've actually given it a name. So for me, I've actually given it a really silly name. And I'll be like, oh, that's, my worry side is called Wanda. And I'll be like, oh, that's Wanda, Wanda the warrior. And so, I mean, I just name it and it becomes a little lighter and almost as funny now that when it does remind me, like I hear it and I'm like, I almost giggle because it's like part of me is in disbelief, I think, that it's happening. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, really? It's happening again? But it's kind of like our patterning and the way we grew up and what we've been doing for the last, like, how many years we've been on this earth. And it's just awareness. And then I automatically move in so I don't get trapped into it. Like I don't get pulled or sucked into it. I just let it go, or I let it be, as I spoke about last week. Just let it be. Divine.
Let it be. I love it. I just wanted to share something real quick about thought forms and patterns. And I love that you and Kimberly brought that up too. What I have come to understand about the programs in the mind is more of an electric field, like a computer, right? So we get a lot of programs, we get a lot of unconscious and subconscious and epigenetic programs too that have been passed down through DNA from our bloodline. And when I've learned this, I started to say to myself, I said, self, let me really be the observer of these thoughts most times, right? But as soon as I get my emotions involved, it's over because I'm a very sensitive person, right? I have feelings, I have sensitivity, I can sense, other people's emotions and as an empath and also as a psychic, right? There's so much that I can pick up on, but I have to understand that we are not just picking up on ourselves programming, but we are also picking up on collective programming, right? And there's a scientific proof of this as well, is that we have a part of our brain that picks up on collective programming. So this could be your family programming, epigenetics, this could be people around you. So when we can say we can read people's mind, it's kind of like another way to look at that too, Mary Jan, is that we can pick up on other people's thought forms and then we are not sure if they are ours or somebody else's. So this is what I like to do to trick the mind or the thought forms. I like to observe them. Sometimes I laugh at them because I have a dark humor as well. Yes, I do, you know, and I'll just ignore them and they will go away. Or if that doesn't work, we can be the alchemist and put something else there, right? These words, we could put something else with those thoughts. We can reparent those thoughts is what I like to say. But when I get my emotion into it, it's over because then that's where we have like an emotional pity party or, we're starting to make the thought bigger by magnetizing it with an emotion because emotions are magnetic. Thoughts are electric, right? They're everywhere. They're always going to be everywhere. But the emotion, oh, right? And I'm working on right now, I'm releasing a lot of emotion out of my body because our body picks up on a lot of emotions that we could be unaware of it too. So yeah, I just wanted to share that love last point. Thank you.
So I think there are a lot of people with a dark sense of humor, Divine, because Mary Jane just said it, and I think Mary Jane knows that. So do I. So I kind of get you there. Um, but one of the things you said, I think that, you know, I have to say that I do feel like emotions do tell us things. Like they are information and they reveal a lot. And so I think you do need to process them and sort of, but not get stuck there. And that's what I've been playing with a lot. It's of how, like, how do you sit with that emotion, kind of look at what it is. Okay, this is the way I feel. What's this really about? Or that's what I always ask myself, what's this really about? Like, get curious about it, realizing what it's like, what is it like, what is that feeling telling you about yourself? Like, and actually examining the origin of that. And then I think that those emotions kind of go, or you can just let them be. And especially if it's an old pattern, because you don't really need to revisit it over and over again, because you're like, maybe at points you do, because things do. We talked about healing in layers last week or the week before. And then sometimes, things get resurfaced. And then all of a sudden you're re examining again and you heal on a deeper level and you kind of let it go. But I think that there is usefulness, as Susan David from Harvard calls it. I mean, emotions are signposts. They're like signals of like what's happening and what your values are and what you hold as in being important. It tells you a lot about yourself, your emotions. Like if you are feeling sad or lonely, it just tells you that you value connection. And so I think that they are there for a reason. Kind of just don't want to get stuck there. Not that I haven't gotten stuck there. I have.
I'm laughing because I'm like, I know you and I've had this conversation before. I'm like,
Absolutely.
yes, but it's sometimes, not sometimes, most times, I guess I should say, is that um finding that balance, finding that the middle path or the middle way. It's really about, at least for me, and I can certainly resonate this, is letting go of the all or nothing thinking. Kind of what I was alluding to before is like sometimes the you know is life isn't just black and white. The growth and the learning comes in those gray areas, and sometimes it can be a beautiful experience if we just allow ourselves to stay balanced and find balance wherever we land, at least to the best of our abilities. It's not always perfect, but we don't need to be perfect. We just need to be real, authentically us.
Absolutely. I love that. We don't need to be perfect.
Oh, Jan, you just muted yourself somehow.
I realized that. All of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, I muted myself. I'm not perfect. Surprise, surprise.
Yay! That
Hey,
makes
right,
it
right.
easier for me too.
No, but absolutely, because it's not about being perfect. Um, and trying to be perfect, first of all, eh, have I was on a call with Sean Michael yesterday, on a meeting, and he said something like he's a recovering perfectionist, he said, and I just had a laugh. I thought that was just great because that idea of becoming a recovering perfectionist. And I thought, if you try to be perfect, it's exhausting. Anybody been there? Like trying to navigate that world of being perfect all the time. And then it's like, first of all, it's unattainable. Like you can't get there. And then all of a sudden, like, how it makes you feel when you're not there. And thinking that you have to know everything. That was one of the most liberating things I ever learned. Was I was going to give a lecture and had a friend, I was really nervous. And she said to me, just remember, like, if you don't know something, you just say you don't know and that you'll look it up or you'll get back to somebody. And I remember taking a deep breath going, oh, it was just like a new phenomenon to me. And it was just like, oh, okay, that's all right, So Divine has her hand up again. So feel free.
Jan, Mary Jan. Ladies, it's been a minute, okay? Give me a. Well, you said perfect, and I have to share this, right? Because, I only speak when I feel led to. Perfect. This is something that I went back and forth with myself for a long time because I feel like a part of me is like this perfectionist of order, especially in my home and my environment, right? I mean, it has a good thing to it as well, but I can't overly do it. So when I think about perfect, I used to beat myself back up and forth about this word. And then I looked up the etymology to the word perfect. And then I consulted my inner guidance. And I said, okay, what is perfect? And I heard just as is. Just as is, or even the etymology word to perfect is done, right? It's completed, it's already done. So, what I tell people all the time is you're already perfect, you're already done, you're already just as is. Even if you decide to become something else, maybe that was already a part of you too, but you're just now discovering it. So, just wanted to share that, Jan, that maybe we are all perfected as is. I love you.
Love you too. And absolutely. And it reminds me of the same idea of like symmetry, or we're talking about balance, because if you think about the human body is like not everything on one side is in the other side. There is this asymmetry that's in the body. Certain organs, your heart, we're not perfectly in balance. And I always say it's in that imbalance. Like, if you've ever done I think all of us realize this. It's something very, very basic. How many of us, one side of our body is stronger than the other body side? Our left arm is stronger than our right arm. Our left leg is stronger than our right leg. I mean, and that is just automatically kind of a given. And it's playing with that kind of the difference, which if you're doing like a yoga practice, makes it interesting because all of a sudden you have one side that's really easy and it's like the other side is a totally different body. And it's playing with that and realizing what happens when you are like when it's not easy and you have to work harder, or what you have to do to kind of maintain balance on one leg versus the other leg. It's a definite lesson in how you kind of handle that kind of way in your life of like, you know, do you get ticked off because you've lost your balance, like angry? So it's really interesting as I always say the yoga is life and life is yoga, but it's really, really, to me, it's really true. And that's why I love to teach, because I think that, when I did my teacher training, when we were all taking the exam, and my teacher said, just remember, you can't fail. Failing yoga is like failing life. So I thought, okay, good. So
Oh, Jan. I love that. Feeling it was like feeling life. I'm like, oh dear. And that's not to say that each day that that we don't have our limits one way or the other, right? It's not failing. We're just each day is different. But Darlene was saying perfectly imperfect, and that's what we are as human beings, as perfectly imperfect and perfect. Yeah, it's just it's as it is. That's the way I think. But I love that feeling yoga. Oh boy, I'm gonna think of that next time I'm doing yoga and I'm having to shift my focus over and over again so that I can stay on balance when I'm on one leg. Thank you.
right. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And Divine commented on anger. And yes, I think anger can be productive. It's what we do with those emotions. So it's not the emotion itself that is bad. The emotion is information, shows you your values. It's what you do. And, being angry isn't bad. If you go and slug somebody, that might not be too good, So it's what you do with that. And there's a great podcast, which maybe I'll put in the show notes, which I listened to recently on deep feelings. And so I thought it was really great. So I can pop that in the comment section.
It's so awesome. What a wonderful conversation this this is this has been. It's always, we think about these things and privately or, to over and over in our heads as my mind tends to go. But I love having these conversations and community here um with beautiful people and gaining the insights that they have. I'll say you should, I like that should have a part two. Yes, it does seem like a really deep subject, doesn't it? But yeah, I love that. Thank you for Jan for bringing those beautiful insights.
Oh, thank you, Mary Jane, and thank you, everybody. So I guess now is the time to move into our meditation. And so we'll do that. And so just take a moment. Find a comfortable position, whether that's sitting or lying down. Allow your hands to rest gently on your lap or by your sides. Close your eyes if you feel comfortable. And take a deep breath in through your nose and slowly exhale through your mouth. Again, take a deep breath in and let the air go. With each breath, allow yourself to settle into this moment, letting go of tension, letting go of expectations. There's nowhere to be but here, now. Bring your awareness to your breath and notice its natural rhythm, neither forced nor held back, simply flowing in and out. Observe how the inhale rises and the exhale falls. Just like your breath, life is always in motion, finding its own rhythm between effort and ease, between doing and being. There is no need to control, no need to force. Simply allow yourself to be within life's flow. Now gently bring your hands into a tight fist. Notice the tension in your fingers, your palm, your wrist. This is one extreme. Grasping, holding on too tightly, trying to control. Notice how it feels in your body. Is there tightness elsewhere? A sense of strain? Take a breath in and silently acknowledge this is one side of the spectrum. This is one way of being. Now release the fist and let your hand shake them out a little bit and let your hands go completely limp, open, like they're not connected to you, as if all the energy had drained from it. Notice this feeling loose, disengaged, perhaps lifeless. This is the other extreme, giving up, lacking effort, letting everything slip away. How does this feel in your body? Take another breath in and acknowledge this is the other side. This too is part of the spectrum of experience that we have. Now gently shape your hand into a soft cupped position, not clenched, not limp, but holding with ease. Feel the balance, the steadiness. This is the middle way. A place of engagement without force, openness without surrender. As you breathe, silently repeat these phrases. I release the need to pull or push. I trust the natural flow of life. I find strength in steadiness, wisdom in balance. I walk forward with clarity, guided by inner peace. With each inhale, invite in a sense of harmony. With each exhale, release the need for extremes. Feel yourself settle into the middle. Sanskrit, we call this madhya, the midline, the middle, a place of wisdom, presence, and peace. As you prepare to return to your day, take one deep breath in and let it go. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Bring gentle movement back into your body. If you'd like, softly open and close your eyes and hands, feeling the balance between closed and open, light and dark. And when you're ready, slowly open your eyes and carry this sense of balance with you, knowing that the middle way is always available. The quiet space between too much and too little always guides you home. So thank you all so much for joining us this morning or this afternoon or evening, depending on where you're located. Mary Jane and I are really happy that you came. If you're not connected with us on LinkedIn and Facebook and our groups, Spirit-Born Imaginings, please do so. We would love to have you and share space with you outside of these weekly meetings. We are having a workshop tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So there's still space if you'd like to join us. Springtime renewal, a fresh start for the mind, body, and soul. So feel free to, we'll pop the link into the comment section maybe, and then that way you'll have it. Have a really, really great week, everybody. Shine bright, my words for the year. Honor yourself, Mary Jane's word for the year.
Honor you.
Right, honor you.
Yeah, it's lovely. And yeah, feel free to connect. We would love to connect with you even outside of this space if we haven't already. And yeah, we look forward to hopefully you'll be able to join us next week as well. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Al.
Bye. Austin, we'll pop the information into the comment sections for the event so you can see it if you'd like. And thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.